To build anything that truly lasts, it takes time.
Month after the tragic Air India plane crash in Ahmedabad that claimed the lives of 260 people, the Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau has released a preliminary probe report. Now, as per the 15-page report, the fuel cutoff switches of both the engines transitioned from run to cutoff position, one after another within a time gap of just 1 second. And this led to the snapping of fuel supply to both the engines, causing them to lose power. But the report doesn't mention what actually caused the fuel switches to move. Was it due to human action, a mechanical failure, or some electronic issue? That critical question remains unanswered and is the focus of the ongoing investigation. The preliminary report also contains a paraphrased account of the communication that took place inside the cockpit pertaining to the fuel cutoff, where one of the pilots is heard asking the other, why did he cut off the fuel switch? The other pilot then responds that he did not do so. So after the fuel supply cut off, the pilots scrambled to save the aircraft. Within just about 10 to 14 seconds of the fuel cutoff, they moved to both fuel switches back to the run position, and both engines began automatic restart sequences, with engine 1 even showing signs of recovery and engine 2 attempting to relight as well. But the recovery could not be achieved due to the insufficient time and the altitude of the aircraft. Times Now gets you a real-time analysis from a simulator cockpit explaining what could have happened.
That's the million-dollar question, that what happened in this particular time period, because for 31 seconds the flight was in the air, starting from the time it took a lift from the ground. At 3 seconds, what we got to know, we are in this flight simulator. This is Airbus 320. I'm joined by Captain Alok Singh, who will be describing it for the viewers that what exactly happened in this time period.
Actually, if you look here, this is engine number 1. This is engine number 1, engine number 2. In Airbus, we call it master switches. In Boeing, we call it fuel shutoff valve. So basically, all they are doing is supplying fuel.
So I took a lift.
Yes. So in this particular case, the pilots, they advanced the throttle for takeoff, and aircraft accelerated to a speed of 180 knots. Now this airspeed has increased. And
so
now
we are taking off. It's 1, 2, 3. Now I am telling you why have you switched it off.
At this time, if you see, both the engines has been switched off. Engine electronic control, it will try to automatically give continuous ignition to the engine to enable the pilots to start the engines. They started to try they tried to start the
exactly
engines.
in 30 seconds.
Absolutely. One of the engine did not responded. One engine responded for the startup. It started to spool up, but it was too late because by the time the aircraft already crashed.
So that was a look at what could have happened in the final few seconds, because those seconds hold all the answers. Now, let's get you what the findings are in this report. This is a preliminary report that has been filed, and we are still awaiting the final report to be submitted in the case. But let's take a look at what it goes on to say. Fuel switches is where the entire focus is. What happened to the fuel switches? Was it manual? Was it technical? What actually went wrong? So the fuel switches flipped to the cutoff, and this was mid-air after the aircraft had already taken off. The fuel switches were then later changed to the run, and it happened within seconds, all of it happening within seconds, but yet it was too late and the engines had lost power right after the takeoff. So the takeoff had happened. During the takeoff, it seemed like everything was fine, there was nothing wrong with it, but what happened after that, that's where the question comes in. So the pilots tried to restart and one engine even partially recovered, but there was a paucity of time. They couldn't make it on time because of also the altitude as well as the lack of time, the insufficient time that was available. The cockpit audio. Now, there is a lot of focus on the cockpit audio because it has the conversations of the pilots. What happened in the moments that led to the crash? What was the panic? What was the conversation that took place? it gives a clear indication of what actually happened. And in that audio, you can hear one of the pilots asking, why did you cut it off? He was talking about the fuel switch. The other pilot responds and says that I did not do it. And that is where the mystery deepens. What actually happened? That question still remains. Now, let's talk about the theories that were doing the rounds on what could have happened. This was when initially only the video was available. There was no information available on what happened. This preliminary report actually cuts down many of these theories, including on whether the pilots did not get rest, whether they were too tired. But the preliminary report says that the pilots were well rested. They also passed the alcohol test, so there was no problem there. Apart from that, the questions that were asked on the fuel, did it run out of fuel? Did it have any contamination? Those questions have also been answered with the preliminary findings showing that the plane had enough fuel and it was within the weight limits as well. Remember, because of the way we could see one part of the aircraft plunging, there were questions being raised on whether the weight was too much. That has also been ruled out. Apart from that, the fuel quality has been tested as well, and it is found to be completely okay, which means that there is no question of fuel contamination. That has been ruled out in this report. The flap handle position is also consistent with the normal takeoff. Questions being asked on whether the checks were not conducted. During the takeoff, it all seemed normal, and during takeoff, everything was fine. That's what the report has found. Apart from that, the thrust levers also remained forward until the impact. And what is the impact we're talking about when the aircraft starts plunging? There is no significant bird activity that has been observed in the vicinity. This is answering the questions on whether it was a bird hit that actually led to this fatal accident. Now let's talk about what the report actually recommends. Interestingly, the AAIB preliminary report does not actually recommend any action against these entities that are involved, including Boeing, which is the aircraft manufacturer. There is no action that has been recommended. This is despite questions being raised about the 787, about Boeing, and whether it is safe or not. No action whatsoever has been recommended. Apart from that, on the questions of the engine as well, General Electric, which is the engine manufacturer, there is no action that has been recommended there as well. And on Air India as well, the preliminary report does not raise any questions and no action has really been recommended. So what does it actually mean? What do we understand from this preliminary report? Let's take this across to an expert joining us on the broadcast. Joining us live on the broadcast is Captain Sam Thomas, the president of the Airline Pilots Association. Many thanks for joining us. I want to ask you first about a statement that you have made on behalf of the Pilots Association of India, which expresses concern over the alleged secrecy surrounding the investigation. Can you elaborate on what specific gaps in transparency you're referring to and how this impacts the credibility of the inquiry?
Good evening. First of all, this report was released in the middle of the night at about 1:30. Secondly, it does not have the signature of anybody. Therefore, we feel that it's a very irresponsible way of treating something so significant. And what we've been asking all along is transparency. And we've now come to know that there are a few people who have been chosen by the AAIB who have no flying experience whatsoever. And we have reason to believe that they are not above board. And that is the reason we have raised these concerns.
Okay.
And in general, we are not happy with the way things are proceeding as far as this inquiry is concerned.
Okay. In fact, the association has also highlighted that suitably qualified personnel were not included in the investigation. Who do you believe should have been a part of the probe, and who should be a part of the probe, and in what capacity?
Firstly, a type-rated pilot should be on board. Other pilots should be on board. This concerns the facets that only pilots can understand. Engineers should be on board. We are even saying journalists, reputed journalists can be on board. Subject matter experts have to be on board. There is no one in that qualification or that line of thought that we are seeing in any of these panels. Some ex-Air Force officer with engineering background cannot solve this problem. And it's playing into the hands of some of the big companies.
Okay. In fact, the preliminary report has already been filed. Given the concerns that you have, what immediate steps would you urge the authorities to take to restore the confidence in the investigation process?
Let's try and invite some of the associations. Let's try and get in some industry experts. We will sit with the NTSB, we'll sit with the UK authorities. We'll all sit together and thrash out things as it is done in various advanced countries. So instead of figuring out who to blame, let's find out why this happened. If there is an issue with the pilot's health, let's look at that as well. Let's look at everything. Every facet has to be looked at.
Okay.
So just by punishing somebody and simply imposing fines on pilots, punishing pilots, suspending pilots, this is done in a primitive society, which we are as far as civil aviation is concerned in India.
Okay, all right. Captain Sam Thomas, thank you for joining us with your perspective on the investigation so far. But the Civil Aviation Minister has warned against drawing any conclusions, urging people to wait for the final report to be out.
I don't think we should jump into any conclusions on this. I truly believe we have the most wonderful workforce in terms of pilots and the crew in the whole world. I have to appreciate all the efforts the pilots and the crew in this country are putting into the aviation. They are the backbone of this civil aviation. They are the primary resource of civil aviation, and we care for the welfare and the well-being of our pilots also. So let's not jump to any conclusions at this stage. Let us wait for the final report.
Now, despite the government's appeal against jumping the gun, the opposition parties have rushed to a conclusion. Congress claimed that the BJP government is trying to save certain people and pin the blame on the pilots. The TMC asserted that pilots switching off both fuel cutoff switches and the claim that is being made is an absolute mockery of India. Mamata Banerjee's party also alleged that Boeing's PR cabal can get away by saying anything. Similar sentiments were also echoed by the RJD, which claimed that the governments are controlled by big companies and huge money.
I have a strong feeling that government of India, BJP government, is trying to save certain skins.
So, in fact, this morning, the Civil Aviation Minister, Mr. Naidu, also said that this is just the initial report. More findings will come up and that no conclusions should be drawn at this point. This is going to be a very professional and a transparent investigation, is what he claims.
You are trying to test it. If we blame pilots, what shall be the reaction? Definitely, this statement itself proves they wanted to save certain bureaucrats, certain persons. So, this report cannot be accepted at all.
और अब जो प्रारंभिक रिपोर्ट आई, उसमें कहा जा रहा है कि दोनों इंजन की फ्यूल सप्लाई बंद हुई। ये कैसे हुआ? जब एक आदमी टिकट लेके बैठता है, तो उसकी सुरक्षा की गारंटी वो सरकार करती है, जो मेंटेनेंस करती है। आखिर 270 से ज्यादा जाने जिस हादसे में गई हूं, उसका गुनहगार कौन है, दोषी कौन है? देश जवाब चाहता है।
देखिए, महत्वपूर्ण ये चीज है, एक बड़ी कंपनी इन्वॉल्व है, बल्कि सच ये कहूं कि एक बहुत बड़ी पूंजी इन्वॉल्व है। कई मीडिया में मैं देख रहा था इस रिपोर्ट का इंटरप्रिटेशन, इंटरिम रिपोर्ट का इंटरप्रिटेशन था जब पायलट की। अब तो वो बेचारे दुनिया में आएंगे नहीं और आकर के ये नहीं कहेंगे कि मेरा नाम घसीट के नाइंसाफी कर रहे हो। क्या ये तकनीकी खराबी की वजह से स्विच ऑफ हुआ? लेकिन कौन पूछेगा? बड़ी पूंजी है भाई, बड़ी पूंजी के नियंत्रण में सरकारें चला